For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber. Instant analysis of USC's 2018 Pro Day. And USC has had a lot of Pro Days, but I think this is the first one in history that it was pouring during half of it. If you couldn't already tell by our attire and my hair, it was pretty bad out there. But the name of the game today was Sam Darnold. All 32 teams were out there. Even the owner of the Cleveland Browns was there. So obviously a big day for Sam.
And you can blame this on Sam because they were going to rearrange the schedule and said, you don't want to, you could throw early because you're outside, and then they could have finished up with the weightlifting and the inside stuff later. And Sam said, no, he said, that wouldn't be fair to the other guys that they've, changed their schedule. For me, he said, we'll see what happens. So he got a decent number of throws. I think I counted 58 throws. And a decent number when it was dry, and then he got a whole bunch of them in the rain going both directions. And I think that, if you're Cleveland and you're looking, the Cleveland, all the coaches and the owner were here, general manager, and they had dinner, I think, with Sam last night. And I think, that might have cinched it. I mean, he was really on top of his game. I think he might have missed one or two passes where you could say it was a miss, and then 5 or 6 drops. But I thought he's really done a good job with Jordan Palmer and his conditioning guy. He's still 220. Now, I looked at him, I said, you've really lost some weight, right? He said, well, no, actually, I'm still 220, but it looks different. He's thinner, he's leaner. His hips are much quicker, feet are quicker. They've just done a really good job. His delivery, one of the interesting things, he's getting more on top of the ball. And I think what they did was they shortened his front step so he doesn't get quite as extended when he throws the ball, so he can get rid of it quicker, get on top of it more. I just thought he had as good a day as you could possibly have. He just did everything you would want him to do. The other thing they did is they didn't put him in the shotgun much, mostly in under the center. Didn't have a center, but and they ran all the kind of play action stuff that you see in the NFL, which I think really takes advantage of his footwork and his ball. All the things that he does in throwing on the run. I thought it was just a great day for Sam.
Mm-hmm. During the offseason, there was a lot of talk about Jordan Palmer and what he would do with Sam's throwing motion. Did you see anything dramatically different in the way Sam threw or presented himself today?
Well, I think a couple of things. They loosened his hip up. Some of that is stretching, and he was tight in the hips. So I think he's got much more free-flowing hips. And then the second thing I think was the key is shortening that front stride. So instead of elongating the stride and getting ahead of his throw, he takes kind of a much shorter step, and he's on top of the ball more. The third thing they're doing is, and Jordan has a drill for this, he said a lot of quarterbacks, all they do is lightly touch. It's sort of a guide hand as your left hand. They're so right-handed. And he said what he does is he will have a day where they have to grip the ball in their left hand, and they have to grip it only in their left hand. Instead of just touching it or patting it, you got to, in order to do that, you have to have the ball here. You don't have it down here below your waist, where Sam often got in trouble with the ball below his waist and only in his right hand. So if he's here, if this is the normal posture when you're dropping back and when you're trying to avoid the rush and all that, I think that, so as Sam said, people ask, what was the most difficult thing for you going to the combine, doing all the interviews? He said, explaining the turnovers. That was the difficult thing. He said, what I tell him is, I'm very aware of it. I'm working on it. I'm thinking about it. And that's what Jordan said too. So I thought they've handled that really well.
Mm-hmm. We also saw Ronald Jones today. His hamstring is still bothering him, so he didn't do a lot of running. He did do some route running with Sam Darnold. The main thing he focused on was catching balls. He said that was something on his film that teams wanted to see more of. He had kind of basic routes on his film. How do you think Roger did today?
Did okay. I think it's obvious he's not ready to run yet. I think he dropped one ball that he would really like back. He did routes out of the backfield, and but other than that, and he's still very upbeat. He still thinks. He said, I think I'm the second. Saquon Barkley is obviously the number one running back. He said, I think I'm the second guy. I think I've got that home run, ability, the ability to really break the long runs that maybe nobody else has, which is why it's so frustrating to to not be able to actually run. He thinks he's going to run. He said 4.3. He said 4.35. He said, I'm a fast 4.4. So if he runs in that range, and he's 209, he wants to be 210 pounds. If he runs in that range at that weight, people will like him a lot. But they want him to show that he can be on the field all 3 downs. And to do that, you've got to be able to catch the ball on 3rd down. So that's the thing he's going to have to, in the private workouts. And if he and Deontay have a workout here at USC, they'll get a lot of people in, and they'll want to see Rojo catch the ball.
Yeah, I was going to mention we did not see Deontay Burnett today. He said that his hamstring is still bothering him, so he's still very limited. Like you just mentioned, there is talk that Ronald Jones and Deontay Burnett could have a combined pro day, second pro day, to kind of show off their skills once their hamstrings heal. How do you think that will benefit both of them?
I think that would be a good move. I think really a good move for both of them. Deontay tore his hamstring January 29th, so way before the combine. He's right now he's 184 pounds. So, they listed him at 170 his whole career at USC. I'm sure he was probably bigger than that, toward the end. But he looks bigger. It'd be nice to see him, get to run and run something. If he can run something under a 4 or at a 4.6 or maybe slightly under it, that would be great. I don't know how the hamstring is going to hurt him, but I would suggest that they don't do the private workout until they're ready to run. But if you got the chance to see both of them, I think they're both in that range where they've got a lot of teams that could say, I'm interested in him just because where they could fall in the draft and in multiple rounds. So I think it would be a good move for those guys if they went together.
For the second pro day in a row, we've seen guys who at the end of the last game of the season, when we seen them at pro day, they kind of look pretty different. Nico Falah was one of those guys. He looked like almost a different person. There's a lot of guys we saw today that look different. Why do you think that is? And who else did you see?
Well, I snuck out on the field. Media, unfortunately, they keep telling us you got to be on the track. And there are so many people here from the NFL. I was out there at the end of the 40-yard dash. They hadn't started yet. There were 48 guys with stopwatches at the end. And they were, weren't even half of the NFL people here. So I'm out there, and I was still out there for the first 40s. And this guy, the first guy runs by, and I'm asking people, who was that? And they said, I think that was Nico. Well, he's got much longer hair, a much bigger beard, and he weighs 301 pounds, and he's put it all here. I mean, his arms, it's almost impossible to believe he did that between, January and now. I mean, and then the next guy who runs is Viane, Talamaivao, and he's lost probably 40 pounds. He's 300 pounds. And so now you've got Nico is bigger than Viane. I mean, Viane hasn't been anywhere near 300 pounds probably since his sophomore year in high school, maybe his freshman year in high school. So, and he looked great. I thought he looked good. So yeah, we're seeing guys that and Sam. I mean, I think Sam, Nico, Viane. Who else looks like kind of a change? I mean, I think Chris Hawkins looked a little leaner and a little more defined. It's kind of amazing what these guys can do when they really start focusing on how important this is, and they've got somebody working with them. But I thought the physical change in Sam Darnold was really impressive as well. I mean, everybody will talk about his throwing, but I mean, just the quickness, the body turn, the core strength, just all of it. I was just very, very impressed with Sam. It was all the things you like about Sam without the things you maybe didn't like. And his hips had been tighter a little bit, a kind of, effective, but kind of, as they would, even the people who really like him say, maybe a slightly sloppy delivery because he was so good, it didn't matter. All of that looks like he's really cleaned it up. So there have been a lot of changes. This was one of those pro days where you really saw a difference between the last game and now.
This is also the second chance for Steven Mitchell to put his name on the board. So many scouts here. He had a pretty good day. His 40 time was we
don't know what the official one, but the guy next to me, you got a 4.34 and a 4.33. Whether that's how close that is or not, I don't know. He looked like he was running really well, no knee brace or anything on, just flying. So, good for Steven. And he was one of the receivers. I think he made a lot of good plays with Sam. But Steven looked, you would not have known, here's a guy coming off of 2 knee surgeries. And much of his time at USC, it looked like he'd had a couple of knee surgeries. He didn't look like that today.
Also a day for the defensive guys, Uchenna Nwosu and Rasheem Green. What do you see from those 2 guys?
Well, Rasheem just looks like he hasn't changed a bit. He's just got that same physique that he's always had. He doesn't want to put on it, and people, try to talk to him about, you might be better at 295 than 275. He really likes where he is. He thinks it would slow him down, and that's what he looks like today, and he just looks perfect. I mean, in terms of, whether that's perfect for the NFL, but he's just, his physique is terrific. As far as Uchenna looked like he's already in the NFL. He just looks like a pro. He's quick and athletic and smooth, and at 6'3" and 250, he just looks like he belongs there. And he's one of the guys, I think, one of the reasons there were so many people here today, because Uchenna is I think he has more ability to move up and be kind of, to this point, an undervalued guy in the mock drafts and that. I think that's, a reason maybe the Patriots had, I think, 4 people here. And it might be, and they're going to be obviously drafted at the end, but he might be one of those guys that they say, we can steal him at the end if he's still there, which he probably will be. But I think he's one of the more interesting. I mean, I think everybody likes him. Everybody that sees him, talks about him, sees him in person, he certainly looks the part, and he played the part. So, you had a number of people said, he'd be good. Somebody, Chargers were saying, boy, he'd look good with the Chargers. He's just, what they need. So that'd be neat for Uchenna if he could, somebody like that would pick him up early, maybe even the first.
Yeah, that would be interesting indeed. Any final thoughts from Pro Day before we wrap it up?
It just seemed like a bigger deal. I mean, we've had the biggest Pro Day in history with the Reggie Bush, year. But with the satellite trucks out there, and I mean, just the way the place got hushed when Sam was starting to throw, and you had, NFL people literally the entire sideline, end zone, and sideline, and one guy is on the field, and the whole world is kind of watching, including the billionaire owner of the Browns, who was, I think he's worth, we just looked it up, $3.7 billion. And he was sitting up there all by himself, had a legal pad out, and just kind of and then it starts raining like crazy, and I tried to look to see where he was. Poor guy didn't have an umbrella. He had a, poncho pull over his head and was just getting soaked. But it was that kind of a day where there were so many general managers here, people that, in normal years you might see a couple general managers. There were a lot more than that this time. And head coaches. I thought it was cool. The new head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel, former Ohio State linebacker, big-time linebacker, was out there. He was the guy with the pads on when the linebackers were working, and he was, hitting with them and moving around with them. And that's kind of, I thought it was kind of a cool day in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's going to wrap it up from Pro Day at USC. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.